Okay, Joaquin, it's all yours.
Thank you. Well, it is 6:01 on this Monday, July the 7th. I'd like to bring this meeting of the Human Rights Commission Disability Rights Task Force to order and begin by welcoming you all here on this beautiful July evening. We're going to go ahead and begin our round of introductions, as is our custom, and then we'll welcome Marilyn to the meeting. So let's start with those in the room. Christina, you want to get us started?
Sure. Christina Ballard. I live in Ward 7. I'm a commissioner on the Human Rights Commission, and I sit on this Disability Rights Task Force.
Hello, everybody. My name is Robert Marshall. I live in Ward 2. I am the vice chair of the Human Rights Commission, and I sit on this task force.
And lastly in the room, Gretchen Bennett, staff liaison to the task force.
Great, thank you. Haley, do you want to get us started here online?
Sure. Haley Barenbaum, Disability Task Force member and labor union worker. Still don't know my ward.
Tony, if you can hear us, go ahead. I'm not sure if Tony is with us or can hear us.
Okay,
Oh, there you go. Go
I'm
ahead.
here. Sorry, I am having technical difficulty, but I am trying to hang in there. Tony Marys. I live in Salem Housing Authority Public Housing. Technically not in any of the wards according to the map. Um, and I represent various disabilities and a member of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Marilyn, your part coming up here, but in a few minutes. But if you want to introduce yourself too, please feel free.
I'm Marilyn Daly Blair, and I am the director at Center 50 Plus and an employee of the city of Salem.
Great. Thank you all. Gretchen, any public comment?
None received.
Okay. Well, I guess that leads us into your bit, Marilyn. I just want to welcome you and thank you for being here. You know, we're a short term. I'm sure Gretchen's given you a spiel already, but we're a short term task force that's been set up by the Human Rights Commission, and it's kind of advisory capacity to council to explore disability issues, accessibility challenges that the city faces, and to kind of collate those learnings into recommendations, both and or to commission or council broadly. So you're a part of that journey in terms of hearing from folks in the community and learning about what's going and what's going well. And so Marilyn is the longtime, maybe even the founding executive director of I don't know if there was anybody before you or not, longtime director of the Center 50 Plus, and welcome you here and talk about your initiatives and your work and see where there might be some overlap. So thanks for being here, Marilyn.
Oh, very good. Well, thank you very much for your service to this very important committee. And I think there is definitely we're going to see some overlap and some discussions where we could really, you're going to see some similarities and things that we're working on. Again, I'm Marilyn Daly Blair, and I'm the director at Center 50 Plus. And while I would love to say that I was the very first director, we're getting ready to celebrate our 50th anniversary. And that is coming up in 2026. So we're just right around the corner from that. We were built in 1976. We were the original Salem Senior Center. A group of seniors approached the city of Salem and asked the city to go into partnership where the seniors and the city together raised funds to build the original Salem Senior Center. We were happy there for many, many years, but in 2008, we had an opportunity to move into a larger facility and to rebrand ourselves and kind of re-script how we wanted to support older adults as we moved forward. And so in 2008, we built the property on Portland Road, now called Center 50 Plus. It was such a great opportunity at that time. We were able to sell our building to the Salem Clinic and keep some really important healthcare services in Northeast Salem. We were able to continue some of our work out here in Northeast Salem because that was really important to us. But we were able to really reinvent ourselves, not because we weren't already doing a great job, but because our community and our older adults were asking for their service delivery to be in a different model. The original model was much more of a responsive or a reactive kind of programming. So people would often come to us when they were quite elderly. They would often come to us when they had outlived their money or they were already living with chronic illness. And so as we were surveying our community, we were thinking about how we were going to attract not just the current seniors, but the baby boomers coming in, as well as future generations. We knew that there was really a desire for more of a proactive approach, meaning that we could help people avoid chronic illness. We could assist people in advance of outliving their money by helping them with some financial decisions earlier. And so that's really where we started moving forward. I always like to answer right up front, why is it Center 50 Plus? Well, when we were doing our community surveying, we actually, with Portland State University, did a phone survey. And we called people and we said, when do you become a senior? Well, frankly, that was the most confusing question they had been posed. Some people thought it was when you retired, and that could be any age. Some people thought it was when you got Medicare at 62. Others thought when they got their Social Security, which could be 67. And then there were others that no matter what their current age was, it was 10 years older than themselves. So you became a senior when you were 80, it was really when you were 90. When you were 90, it was 100. So we knew that we wanted to define kind of the population we were serving in our name so that people knew that when do you qualify? Well, we chose 50 and older following a brand and industry leader, AARP. There's just a lot of evidence demonstrating that if we can get two people 10 to 15 years prior to making a reduction in income or a change in lifestyle, that we can turn the course. And so we took, and then the final is that many of our seniors had a goal of living to 100. So we said, okay, well, that's easy. Let's just take 100 years of life and say that we're serving the second half of life, 50 and older. So that is what we've been since 2008. And we are a comprehensive multi-purpose center recognized as a focal point community center for the city and for our county, serving both Marion and Polk counties. We have over 200 different programs, activities, and services, and we follow what we call the 7 dimensions of wellness, focusing on total body, emotional, physical, cognitive, and health well-being. And we follow those 7 dimensions, and we utilize our resources to spread those out across all 7 dimensions so that we're doing a comprehensive approach. Now, the old model, the old Salem Senior Center, it was primarily social in nature, mostly sedentary activities, card playing, bingo, a few things like that. And we recognize socialization is such an important part. Ending loneliness and isolation is our key cornerstone effort. And that socialization is one piece of that. But that we know that to end in social isolation and loneliness, we need to not just keep people busy, but we need to keep people engaged and with purpose. And so that often looks like giving back to the community. So our 4 primary goals at the center, of course, is stability and vitality, serving our community in partnership with collaborative partnerships, cutting edge programming. We try to lead the group. We try to be a leader in the nation. We are both award winning and the first to be nationally accredited in Oregon by being cutting edge programming, one step ahead, being the guide. But most importantly, a volunteer driven organization where we create purpose, engage seniors in utilizing their personal time and talent at any stage of their aging process so that they can contribute, because we know that the results of ending loneliness and isolation is the opportunity to give back, where you are demonstrating that you have a role and responsibility to the community and that it is appreciated and respected as in a community. So we really reinforce that. So that is kind of Center 50 Plus in a nutshell. We have 15,000 patrons. And we serve roughly 725 a day. Our regular hours are 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday, Fridays until 4, and then every other Saturday. And we have a full-size gym, and we have a variety of hobby areas. And then we have a lot of besides personal enrichment, we have a lot of what we would call social service supported, such as our Alzheimer Respite Day program, or our caregiver support, or our important brain health programming. We also host and house partners like Marion Polk Food Share, which provides a meal program Monday through Friday, as well as the Alzheimer Association of Oregon is housed at Center 50 Plus. So you can come to the center and have somewhat of a one-stop shop, either through the services we offer or through the partnerships that are well established, serve on our advisory commission, provide programming directly from the center, such as Northwest Senior and Disability Services, Salem Health, just to name a couple, AllsNet of Oregon as well. So we have 45 community partners, both nonprofits, business community, as well as our variety of our agency partners. So one of the reasons I really shared kind of that overview is it brings me to really why I'm here today, which is to talk about our Age-Friendly Communities project. And I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully that works.
Marilyn, I can see it. It looks like it's working.
All right. Well, let's see if I can get to the beginning. Okay. So in 2017, Mayor Chuck Bennett, approached the Center 50 Plus Advisory Commission with AARP in tow and approached us to see if we would be interested in taking the lead in a community-wide assessment of Salem called Age-Friendly Salem. Now, Age-Friendly Salem is AARP has a livability community, livable communities project, and they utilize the guide of the World Health Organization. And we joined both of those forces, and we created a assessment team, age-friendly assessment team. That began in 2017. The whole point of it was, what we were asked to do is to help the community consider and value older adults in a different way. It was an opportunity to provide seniors a voice on, what would make Salem a place for all ages? What would it look like to create a space where there were no barriers to older adults living there, not just living, but thriving for their lifetime? It was an opportunity. The assessment process and the Age-Friendly project was to educate and engage people of all ages. Ultimately, from the very beginning, the group's goal was just they wanted people to pause and consider an older adult, to use that lens in all decision making, whether it's developers or private businesses or agencies or even our neighbors, that people would just pause and say, before we make this decision, how would this impact an older adult? It was, we have been the leader in older adults. We've been recognized as the focal point center for our community for a long time. And we felt we were doing deliberate and intentional work, but the goal of the age-friendly communities was to assist others in doing deliberate and intentional work around age-friendly. The other reason they asked us is we have 45 agency and community partners already engaged that have been working with us for the last 50 years. And so it was a natural to be able to identify and strengthen those collaborations. And then it was, of course, to hope to plan for the future. We knew that there were 45,000 seniors aged 55 and older. We knew that there were 45 individuals 18 to 64 reporting a disability. And we also know that that 13% of our seniors reported, and over 9% of those age 65 and older were living in poverty. And we wanted to identify and assist in looking at those barriers. So our process was a little bit different. We took a whole year. There are these livability domains. And so we knew we wanted to break that down and really look at every single livability domain. And those are on my next screen. So we made application to the World Health Organization. We held a big, huge launch party. And then we formed our age-friendly Salem assessment members. And that group began with 45 people, but it would expand to well over 100 depending on the topic. So then each month we came together and we had a formula where we had what we would call subject experts. And then we would have an open discussion where the public would let content experts or agency leads know how that service delivery was actually being experienced by a senior. And so that was education. Hey, here's what's going on in the community according to what we think, followed by how is it really being received by those that are utilizing those services or not utilizing those services and why, and then a solution conversation. So the different areas are all the ones that we see that I would say we have definitely overlap on: outdoor spaces and buildings, not just ADA, but beyond. Housing, not just affordability, but accessibility, both. Respect and social inclusion. We also had transportation, and we identified communication and efforts to be good age-friendly communication and information dissemination. And as you can just see, in transportation, civic participation. And so we just marched through each of these every month. And then at the end, we received our final results. I already kind of addressed this, why we were chosen to do the age-friendly communities. Again, being a city agency and partnering with many other agencies, it gave us an opportunity to have this comprehensive hub. But on the other hand, so important because we disseminated this information to local seniors, and seniors were in the chairs at every month conversation giving feedback. The unexpected outcomes were that after we finished the year process and we completed our assessment, we had to create an action plan. And we submitted the action plan, and it identifies ways of improving every one of the livability domains. But what came out of it more than that is that we learned, because we have this identified age-friendly communities group now, we've been asked to serve on special committees. We've been asked to talk about our work, not just locally, but statewide and nationally. We've had an opportunity for neighbors to really look at their older adult neighbors in a different way and a different lens. People are starting to use age-friendly language, which has been great. And then we have this whole team of people that are kind of out there talking like ambassadors now about age-friendly work. And it also opened up a ton of new partnerships. We've talked about this. I know COVID is a little back there, but the truth of the matter is the age-friendly work that we have been doing in 2017, 2018, and even 2019 allowed us to pivot very quickly in 2020 for COVID because those partnerships and that shared dialogue was in place. So what we learned, these were the primary goals that resonated almost every single meeting. 85% of our total survey, both in the assessment, in our attended meetings, as well as our community assessments, 85% reported that they wanted to remain in their homes as they age, as long as it was safe. They wanted to live and thrive in their homes and neighborhoods where they feel most comfortable, followed by some priorities. Now, I will just tell you, transportation was one of those conversations that came up at every single meeting. And while it was extremely important, transportation was a barrier to some of those elements that were most important to them, which was social participation, just being able to connect with one another and to lifelong learning and community events. That continued to be a top priority. Civic engagement and volunteerism, seniors wanted to be active and engaged. That was across the board. It didn't matter what age, it didn't matter where they lived, it didn't matter any of those other outside factors. They wanted purpose. They wanted to give back. Of course, housing. Housing remained one of the top concerns. Mostly in our circumstance, it was affordability, people that are living on Social Security and struggling to be able to live independently in a house, in an apartment without roommates or anything like that. And they were finding themselves, really concerned about the affordability. But another that came up was just really safety of their home. Sometimes overhoused, meaning they really couldn't maintain the size of their home that they had, but they couldn't afford to leave their home and replace it with the new cost of housing. And so they were in this dilemma of having too much house for their safety. And then, of course, I say transportation. The ability to move freely around the community without the use of a personal vehicle continually became an issue and a conversation, whether it was accessibility or affordability. It primarily dominated our conversations. So we created an action plan. The action plan, we pick one or two a year to really focus on things. Some are going on all the time. One is technology. Technology continues to be an issue for some, not for all, but a barrier for some. And that has continued to be on the action plan and has not, we don't see that being resolved. We see that as an ongoing area of concern. We also were addressing some things that we could do right away. So some of the results, we have a volunteer driver program to assist us with our transportation issues. So a peer can take another peer to appointments or to special places. That was a pilot program that came through because of the action plan. We also have added mobility fares, volunteer fares, we have built collaboratives to address both of those concerns, just basic transportation. Our newest is working on housing. We are working on co-housing projects, assisting people in finding appropriate roommates, increasing their household income by having roommates, but also helping them through the process of feeling comfortable with sharing their home with someone else. So we so far have been working really on those main pieces. But of course, I mentioned loneliness and isolation. Our biggest outcome of the action plan is that number one was people wanted to live in their homes as long as possible, as long as it was safe. But there are barriers to accessing services. And so we were able to add the WOW van, Wellness on Wheels. We have 2 Wellness on Wheels vans, and they go to neighborhoods. They can go to private homes, but we mostly go to neighborhoods, parks, alleyways, clubhouses, and we create community where people live. And in that effort is to take the services we offer or our partners offer to where people feel most comfortable receiving those services. So we we're making our way through this action plan, and every year we pick 2 tools that we want or 2 action plans that we want to work on. This year, we're going to continue with our housing supports. I've often said we do not receive funding we're not in the housing business, but we're in the accessibility and we're in the relationship business. So helping people remain in their homes as long as they're safe. And helping them build relationships that might support them remaining in their homes and neighborhoods. And then the other is continuing with our loneliness and isolation work. Through the pandemic, we identified 22 manufactured home parks, which are primarily older adults, and they tend to be the larger group that are calling on our services for nutrition supports, fix-it brigade, or like home repair services. They're needing heating and cooling assistance when there's emergencies or unusual weather. So they're calling on us very often. And so we have identified that as another outreach from the center, is supporting those 22 manufactured home parks and helping them create some peer support so that they can support one another, create that village where they're living, by giving them some supports that go with that. So an age-friendly community final assessment is available on our website at City of Salem. It has kind of the feedback of what we received from our local seniors and our agency partners. And, when I'm often asked, what do you think is the greatest lesson that you learned through this? The results that we had in our report were not, I've been doing this 31 years. So the results that we heard, we already kind of knew. But what was so wonderful about the process is we had never really brought all parties into the same room and had honest conversations. Meaning, for an agency partner, they come in and we're focused on our work and we're doing our very best. But for a senior to stand up and give a very particular experience of how our brochure didn't work, or how the phone system with 6 choices was overwhelming, or that there is no place to sit at this bus stop, those practical, really real, those real conversations, I think was the greatest learning experience for all the members of the committee. Those frank communications, because, that dialogue has to happen. And so I would say that was probably the greatest opportunity, and it opened up a dialogue that I think we continue on forever. The action plan, I will say, is fluid. It is ever growing and changing. And that's what makes it's a living, breathing action plan. And we continually visit it and update it annually, and even more often if we have to, because as we work with seniors, we're finding out and redirecting our work. So I just wanted, that's really the age-friendly communities. I'm happy to answer any questions or see if there are ways that our work overlaps and how we can support one another.
This is Christina. Thank you very much for that overview. Could you maybe give us a quick day in the life of a Wellness on Wheels van? Like what activities primarily are people?
So there's 2 kinds. There's on demand. So someone can call and give us a very specific need, like technology support. If someone is struggling to connect with their virtual doctor's appointment, we have a volunteer that will go out in the Wellness on Wheels van and help them connect. But for an activity day, right now we're doing our parks program. They show up in a park. They put out some chairs. They put out some light refreshments. They do 20 minutes of yoga, 20 minutes of craft time, 20 minutes of information and assistance. And then they move on to the next park. So it can be both of those types of activities. So we often will do them independent. We cannot do it independent where it's just us out there popping up and doing a program in a local area and announcing it. But we also use that van to partner. So if we hear of another fair or another festival, our van will be there and it will deliver those services. The WOW van is equipped to deliver an element from each of the 7 dimensions of wellness. So there could be lifelong learning, technology support, volunteerism, health related, health and fitness related. So that's what it's kind of ever changing depending on the group we're going to or what the demand is.
Thank you.
We do not do medical, except for once, occasionally we'll do blood pressure checks, but mostly would be things of health and wellness nature. Nutrition, of course, is one of those things. So during our assessment period, we did have the opportunity, we did walk audits. So we walked our neighborhoods, we walked around town, we identified, areas that were walkable or rideable. We noted when they weren't. It was helpful and has been a part of, we've been able to contribute that to some other things like our Salem and some of these other planning documents. And that's really one thing I didn't mention is when we were asked to do this project, there are many plans going on. We have 20-year plans, we have park master plans, we have these amazing, well thought out, strategic documents that are guiding our agencies as well as our city. The hope of this plan was to be addressing the low-hanging fruit so that we had action every month, every year. People were seeing the results, to be motivating to our older adults to be engaged. It's challenging to engage older adults in 20 and 50-year strategic plans, because they're older and they may not be there to see the results of their work. And so this document and what we are doing with the age-friendly communities is we want fast results, low budget impact that motivates people to make a difference in their community. If they see that a bench is being installed because they said something and that bench is going to be installed, it motivates them to jump into their park and help there. It motivates them to join a committee that's making a difference right then and there. So we call it low-hanging fruit, but really that means fast action that's highly motivating.
I also want to thank you, Marilyn, for your thorough and informative presentation. I apologize. I could hear most of it, but it was kind of choppy for me. But I could hear everything. I just couldn't see you. And it must be my service on my end. I apologize for that. A couple of things I wanted to note, and then dive into a couple questions. One, I think you mentioned 45,000 folks over 50 in Salem, and that you served non-duplicative 15,000 people a year. That's a third of that population. That to me is incredible. Absolutely unbelievable. So I have one question about just how you do that, and then I have a second question about the campaign, the age-friendly campaign, age-friendly Salem initiative. One is, how big of an operation do y'all have in terms of FTE as well as volunteers? Because it sounds like you're doing a lot of wraparound services that must require a lot of people. Talk to us a little bit about what the actual scale of your operation is.
Okay, so we have fewer than 8 FTE. We partner with volunteers. We have 465 volunteers that give 105,000 hours of service. And so um, while we are facilitating or assisting with that coordination of that work, the workers on the ground often are volunteers. We also use some seasonal employees. Sometimes 1 hour, a yoga instructor can work 1 hour a week. So those do fill in the gaps with some part-time seasonal or non-FTEs. But we do run with 7.8 FTE. And so we are pretty lean, but we partner. We utilize staffing from our partnerships to extend some of the things that we're doing. You know, a good example is Salem Health. Salem Health assists us not only with our education, but they also help us with our fall assessments. And we have another organization that helps us with our home safety inspection. So we try to take what we do and then extend that with additional partnerships. Our budget, though, is I probably it's under 2 million. I believe it's $1.6 million, and of that we raise over 600,000 of it. So um, it's definitely a fairly lean budget, and that's because of our volunteerism and our great leadership groups.
And so that third of your budget that you're raising every year, that's through extramural grants, public grants, private grants, things of that ilk.
Fundraising.
Yeah.
We have a 501c3 nonprofit, Friends of Center 50 Plus, and they do fundraising. They run a couple of auxiliary businesses, a cafe, a bingo program, and a trip program. And then we, of course, have fee structure. We are a fee-based organization, so people do pay for our service.
That's helpful. Thank you. So, I think the age-friendly initiative that you were talking about is really aligns a lot with sort of the work that we want to do and are doing. I think we're right now we're in this expert phase, I think is how you phrased it in the equivalent of that for what you experienced. And then we are going to get out to the community later this summer and into the fall as we kind of make our way to recommendations. And two questions. One would be, what are some lessons learned from that? You talked at length about it, but if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing some lessons learned for us as we kind of enter our equivalent of that outreach phase. And then two, we would love to talk to folks at Center 50 Plus. Is that something that y'all would be open to, or something we could coordinate with staff as part of our the communities that we are hearing from in our process?
Absolutely. I think that Center 50 Plus would be an excellent place to conduct your outreach to visit with our folks, whether it's an informal, like a tabling, and you have a survey tool, or you're going to have, maybe have a like more like a community forum. All of that would be happily located at Center 50 Plus. I think it just really moves forward to just getting the feedback we want. Lessons learned, I think right away for me, I would say that I had some people that came to every single meeting and their voice was really, really loud. And that is wonderful. You want the feedback, but it did at times confuse the group that was the main priorities. And when we got our survey tool back, we realized that there was actually, yes, those were concerns, but they actually were not the only concerns, and there were equal concerns. And that would have not been good for our planning to just only go to the loudest voice. And so I think that was something that we had to kind of work through. right away, we knew transportation just kept, I mean, we had people lined up every single week to talk about transportation. So we decided in meeting 3 to just say it out loud. We know transportation is the biggest concern. And we got it. And we're putting it on the wall right now. We're not even waiting to the end because we wanted to relieve them to allow their brains to clear just enough to help us get all of the process done. And it was easy because it was everyone was really emotional about it, was really an upset. So what we did is we got several people and we had them do 3 errands on the bus to go to the doctor, go pick up a prescription, go get their groceries. And we assigned them to come back the 4th week and give their report. And that helped us navigate that focus so much on transportation because we already knew transportation was serious. But we for some reason we were not explaining that people were being heard and that action was going to happen. And so we moved to an action item before we even finished our assessment so that we could move forward.
That's helpful. Thank you. Before I open it up to my other colleagues, I have to ask, did you what role did Chariots play in those findings, and were those reported out to them? And I sit on the board of Chariots, so I have to ask. I think in my own personal capacity, I would say that it's a priority for me to get seating at every bus stop that is available, or that is accessible the infrastructure allows for seating, which is not every bus stop. But and I have long advocated for any stop that's near a healthcare setting, or any stop that's near anything where life happens. I know life happens everywhere, but grocery stores, schools, etc., must have places to sit. And it's mostly just a logistical problem, as far as I understand it from our staff at Chariot. So, long question, but what relationship do y'all have with Chariot?
So we actually we have the travel training program that still sits on our team. But when we were doing the assessment, we had executive director and the president of the board both sitting and attending the sessions to get feedback. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Marilyn about the work at the center, or as it relates to our work here?
I do have some questions and as well just some general insight and inquiry.
Is that Dan's voice? Go ahead, Dan.
My name is Dan Dickinson. I'm speaking today just in representative of late diagnosed autistic adults. I'm also the founder of Neurodiverse Inclusive Solutions and a chapter rep for Autism Society of Oregon. So my question is about outreach and service design. There's a growing population of older autistic adults who have been masking or just overseen earlier in life. Many are just now being diagnosed, often after a burnout or years of masking and services without support. Their needs are distinct. They don't look traditionally disabled. People who are struggling with sensory regulation, executive functioning, and emotional health, and there's serious and ongoing issues within life. And one example that I can just give is going to a grocery store, like you mentioned, to go pick up a prescription. Not someone who appears to be disabled, but if a bus doesn't run on schedule, if there's no parking spots available in the parking center, even though they're not physically disabled, they don't have entitlement to specific disabled parking places. However, those type of situations can lead to severe meltdowns, can lead to them being left alone in a store, just waiting and in shutdown. Also, when it comes to paperwork, when it comes to applying for services, people who are going in to apply for services and there's 20 pages of paperwork, as well as 3 denials that you have to fight through in order to prove and validate your need. And we are talking about 50+ adults that are late diagnosed. They've worked their entire life and they've just hit a burnout period. they're not considered disabled by social standards. However, they are at a point in life where they need a lot of assistance. So just wondering if the Center 50 Plus has considered specific outreach for autistic adults.
So
Just,
we do have an outreach program. It's run by Heidi Miller, and we are often called upon to assist with daunting tasks like 30 pages of work or assisting with the processes. The processes can be overwhelming. While we haven't particularly chosen or called, the particular population that you're speaking of, we are called upon to work with people with all varying cognitive needs. And, one undiagnosed and masked for many is early stage Alzheimer's. You can have that 10, 15 years prior to a diagnosis. And it can be seen as, you know, uh, overwhelmed by a change in circumstance, whether it's paperwork or process or bus missing or all of those different things. So while our outreach coordinator assists to the best of her ability, what we try to do is really seek partnerships. So if there is an appropriate partner or another organization that you can recommend that we could partner with, that would probably be a part of the solution is assisting. But when we have someone call in, we respond to their concern at hand, no matter what. And then we try to navigate the system to the best of our ability and the resources we have. But we do not have a particular individual that is well-versed or trained in that area. And I can say that for a variety of needs. We have, like I said, we have 7.8 FTE, one outreach coordinator, and she serves all people and all populations. And when we do the very best, but we partner as best as we can. So we would welcome suggestions or other organizations or agencies that could assist us.
thank you.
But you're absolutely right. There isn't a day that doesn't go by where we don't have someone show up with a wad of papers in their hand, and they're on their second denial for something, and they're just trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B.
Tony here. Um, Gosh, I have so many thoughts in my head at once. And Marilyn, thank you for sharing all of this information with us. It's been enlightening. My personal experience with Center 50 Plus is I had a partner whose dad was dying of cancer. This was right before the pandemic. And we could not get his medication. They had just moved him home. We had hospice, and a delivery of medication did not happen, which is pretty critical. And I literally walked into 50 Plus and said, somebody else must also have this problem. And this is that community. And they were amazing and helped me find, a place where it cost us $300, but get him enough medication until we could get another delivery. I mean, it is a vital service. I am very impressed at how the organization functions, how it gathers data and looks at things long term. I think that that would be really valuable to us to consider when we're looking at our recommendations, and looking at just because something seems financially impossible. Learning to partner with organizations who want to provide those kinds of services is important, like Dan's organization to help neurodiverse individuals. Clearly, we have somebody who in Dan is representing a community that is not getting, let's just, I'm gonna say it because I live with it where I live. People in the general community, when you say the word disability, only think of mobility disability and they do not consider psychological disability, which is one of the ones that I live with. And we live in a society who, when somebody who once their nervous system is so overwhelmed, the only thing our body knows how to react is to push away. And we learn in the way that we're conditioned in society that when we need to push people away, if we act in a way that is not considered proper in public, we get that relief that we need in that moment, but we then get punished for it later. Anyway, so I really hope that we can take some of the wheels already built by the organization of the 50 Plus Center and apply that in the work that we're going to be doing, especially in how we design, how we're going to gather the data that we need to get from the people we're trying to serve. And that's been big on my mind the last week or so, is that I know we're going into that phase. And I think it's going to be really important for us to really think about what is the information that we need and be creative in how we get that, because we're trying to also get that from a community of people who are going to be weary of our intentions, shall I say. So I'm really hoping, Marilyn, that in the future, as we go through this work, that we can come to you with questions about how maybe you gathered or compiled your data to get the best outcomes.
That sounds good. And I also know that I hope that you have reached out or are including in your list is AARP. AARP is they have a lot of data for communities and not just about older adults. They have a lot of good data so we definitely would want to connect you on that as well.
That would be great. I just recently became an AARP member, and I can personally attest that I get no less than 2 emails a day from them with lots of information. It was overwhelming at first, but now I'm starting to understand how I can save it and file it for when I need that information. You know, they are very effective in communication sharing.
They are. This is Gretchen. I just want to jump in and do a time check. I think we were blessed to have Marilyn for about 45 minutes. And so I wanted to check in. I know you've got another agenda item as well. I don't mean to stop good conversation, but just to do a time check.
This is Robert here. I do have just a couple things. One, Marilyn, hearing the work, your work and the work of your team and your volunteers at Center 50 Plus is just absolutely remarkable. And I'm so glad that the community rallied behind the Center 50 Plus Center, as well as our parks and as well as our library, because just in this 45 minutes, it's clear that Center 50 Plus plays a vital role in the thrivability of our communities. So thank you so much for the work there. I also wanted to commend your team when entertaining the transportation struggles, that you actually put people on buses to navigate the 3 things that, you know, seniors would most likely have to go through for an entire day to really get that, you know, day in the life experience. I think it's really a testament to how seriously you guys take analyzing these challenges and finding solutions. One of the questions, though, that I do have is you had mentioned that some of the services are kind of like a fee-based service. Is there membership dues? Because we did talk about, like the growing number of individuals, seniors that are living in poverty, and they can't necessarily afford a membership to some place to receive these services. And so I kind of wanted just a little more clarification on that.
Well, we're very fortunate. A couple of things. We are a Medicaid carrier. We have a Medicaid number, so our respite program and our caregiver supports can be billed to Medicaid if a case manager puts it into their care plan. So that's really good news. We have 800 members in our gym, and of those, 95% of them, their membership to the gym is paid for by their third-party Medicare provider. So OHP is good about paying for gym membership, and then all of the different supplemental carriers from Kaiser to you name it. So those are really good tools to help people. And then we have a fee waiver program that is actually privately funded by our donors. And that allows us to give people a scholarship. We are a non-membership organization. So you don't pay to come to the center, but we have a menu of options and the need-based things like caregiver support groups or walk assessments or fall prevention and those really quality improving essentials, those are free. And then as there's personal things like arts and crafts and travel, as you can imagine, there is a fee put into those. However, we still have scholarships for those. But health and wellness is one of those that if anyone asks for health and wellness and they're 50 and older, if they don't have the Medicare supplemental insurance, or they're not a senior yet because they're 50 to 62, they're still in that age group. We never turn people away. If people are wanting to improve their health and well-being, we make that happen. And those private donors, they donate particularly to support that.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Marilyn. I think this is it is great for your presentation and all of the work that you and your colleagues do in service of our community. I think, as Robert mentioned, is just incredible, and the community has your support, supports you in turn. I think, and so I think that was evidenced in the last few months. So. I'm hoping this is the first of maybe several conversations, maybe not maybe so formal as this one, but hope to stay in touch and really just to appreciate your time and your sharing all the lessons you've learned over the last however many years. So thank you so much and appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you and the time you're giving. And if you are ever looking for a member for your committee, the Age-Friendly Communities Action Team, that's what they do. They serve and represent the age-friendly lens if needed. So thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.
You too, Marilyn. Thank you. All right. Well, speaking of all the wonderful things that Marilyn was sharing, we need to settle on our own timeline for engagement. And so I think Gretchen has come prepared with some of those dates and times. I recognize that not everyone can be at every single thing. So hopefully we can get a timeline down where at least a couple of us are there in person or available to engage with the partners that we hope to reach out to. So Gretchen, I'll turn it over to you, I think, for this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have 3 dates and times proposed for the group's consideration. And then we have 2 additional opportunities that we don't quite have dates and times pinned down yet, but to offer to you all, but we could have conversation about. And you might have seen, this would have come out to an email to you late last week. I'll walk through them real quickly and then I'll be interested in checking. I'll check back through to see who could be available. The first one, I really want to appreciate Tony for the suggestion and Robert for helping make it happen, would be Monday, August 11th at 3 p.m. at Sequoia Crossings, which is one of the supportive housing programs that you've heard Tony talk about, and this is on Broadway. The second proposal is Wednesday, August 13th at 2:30 p.m. at the Salem Public Library on Liberty Street, and that would be kind of a general all-comers. I should have said Sequoia, the invited audience would be those at the supportive housing complex. The library would be a general all-comers that we could spread the word amongst a variety of community partners as well as the general public. A third, Joaquin, you asked, hey, can we come to Center 50? Yes, and Marilyn and I came up with Monday, September 15th at 1 p.m. And she's quite sure that if we just advertise that with a flyer and through word of mouth at the center, that there'll be quite a few people who'd like to come and share their perspective at Center 50. Also, I've been in touch with Shangri-La and understand their life enrichment activities program. There may be some folks there that would love to have us out, and that's physically located out in South Salem. And we would have a date and a time proposal coming soon from them. So please watch from me. And then also, I'm glad Dan's here. Dan and I have been trading emails about the idea of connecting with people through neurodiverse inclusive solutions. And also, we've been playing with possible dates and times. So maybe I'll pause there and see if there's any questions. But then what I'd like to do is kind of go back through the dates and get a sense of if the three scheduled ones would work for at least two of you. We kind of want to make sure at least a couple of you from the task force can be at each of the engagement opportunities. So I'll pause there and see what questions or comments there may be overall. Okay, very good. Well then, let's go back to Monday, August 11th at 3 at Sequoia. I see Christine is saying yes. Any other yeses?
I'll be there.
And I will be here. I would be nowhere else.
This is Robert. I'll be at the Sequoia Crossing game as well.
It's a go. Perfect. The next, and of course, everyone's welcome, but just I want to make sure we've got at least a minimum.
I'll confirm I can be there too.
Dan too. Okay, that's a good one. And then Wednesday, August 13th at the library at 2:30.
I can be there.
Sweet. Thanks, Tony.
I can be there.
Dan, thank you. Okay. We're good. And then how about Monday, September 15th at 1 at C50? Christine?
I'll be there.
I can be there.
This is Robert. I can be at the Center 50 plus
Christine,
one as well.
Robert, Tony, and Joaquin. Sweet.
That one again?
Center 50 plus. Speaking of.
Then yeah, I'll be there
And
too.
Dan, okay, great. Then if you wouldn't mind just staying tuned for me on Shangri-La, when I am able to pin down a date or time, I will email that and test it and ask you to get back to me. And then I'll confirm it that way for Shangri-La. And then Dan, I don't know if you wanted to talk any more about our idea or if you want some input from the group on what might work or.
Yeah, I mean, we can set a date for September and I'm fine with that. Even like a Wednesday, kind of like we did with the other ones. And I think doing it at the library would work out great. So I can get a location and time scheduled and then put together a group of people to be there.
Oh, thank you. That's great. And I can assist with the scheduling at the library. Being a city employee, I'd be happy to help with that. So I'm hearing you say a Wednesday in September. Should we ask our task force members to take a peek at their calendars and see if there's Wednesdays that are good, bad, ugly? I'm also
We can look at
curious
the
about
17th or the 24th.
great 17th or 24th of September, friends. And
Gretchen, this is Tony. I can make any date. So just if you need to, I can be one for anything that you need.
love it.
Flexible as well. I'm flexible on time.
And Dan is flexible as well.
On Wednesdays, I can't do during the day. I could do evening.
Okay, we'd have to see when we can rent the room as well.
Oh, we
Yeah.
can't- Oh, city can do after 5, right?
Yeah, I could do an after 5 being a city employee there. Dan, what works for the people that you work with? Like, do you have a sense of day versus evening?
I would actually say 5 o'clock or on would probably be better.
Okay, so a Wednesday evening, the
I know
20th.
the library doesn't usually accommodate after 5:30, but if you're able to.
Yeah, I think I might be able to score that. I believe September 24th is a conflict with other human rights. Yeah, September 24th is a conflict for other human rights commission meetings, but the evening of September 17th, pending getting a room, could
Yep.
work.
We can nail that down.
And I'm hearing a couple of yeses.
Yeah, I just work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. And if I don't know about how long the meeting is gonna be, I need to know about time frame for either taking off a half day or taking the amount of time I need to join.
Haley, thanks. I was imagining 90 minutes, but I think that might be something that your group unpacks next. But so, okay, so I think what I'm hearing is Wednesday, September 17th at the evening at the library. So I will work on securing a room
Okay.
and circle back to everybody.
Third
good.
Wednesday.
That's the
Sounds-
third.
I have the museum book club at 5.
Thank you, Gretchen.
Thank you, everybody.
Well,
Copy.
I'm glad that those dates and times work for folks, and that we'll have at least 3, probably 4, coming up in the next 6 weeks or so, or 8 weeks or so. I want to talk more about format. Do folks have? We've kind of talked about it kind of nebulously in the last few meetings, but do folks have a preference about how these conversations should take place? Um, obviously there'll be a major listening component. Is there an appetite for engagement, kind of audience-wide engagement with commissioners, or a more one-on-one approach, or kind of as things feel appropriate? I'll leave the floor open.
Okay, I guess I'll jump in first. Um, so myself, and based on previous experience, my suggestions would be, or what I envisioned is a survey format that we start with. Whether honestly, I think that it depends on who you're dealing with, whether you can hand them the survey and get collected, or you need to sit down with them and have a conversation. I prefer the concept of us having a conversation with people, because there's a lot of stuff you can learn from a conversation that you're not going to get from a survey. I really liked the format that Western Oregon University group used, where you're asking them to either agree, or rather, actually, I envisioned a um sometimes always never kind of format. Um, but that's kind of where my brain is at, but like I'm not locked into it, but that's how I guess in my mind I have imagined this will look.
I think maybe we want to come up with an intro to be used consistently. So we're opening the same way, and explaining who we are, why we're there, what the goal is. And I'm not real sure after that.
This is Tony. I concur with Christina. That would be great. And maybe we have, like a prepared statement and decide ahead of time which one of us is going to be at the event and is going to do that, I guess.
When it comes, I'd like to highlight that when it comes to disability talk, and especially in my Department of Neurodiversity's talk, meetings that usually would, in this type of format, each individual usually gets like 5 or 10 minutes to speak. And from my experience in general disability, people are not going to want to limit what they have to say in that time. And that time is not going to be enough to be able to share their story but then also share the action. So I think and with being inclusive, but having fewer individuals with longer time periods might be more beneficial for the individual's sake, or having a longer meeting in general.
Can we ask people to present in a format?
I think that could work, or pre-submitting in writing as well as verbal. But I think in this demographic in general, people are going to want to share their story, not just information.
Right, right. I'm thinking here, share, this is me, my story. This is how you could make Salem better.
Yeah, I think exactly that. I think putting together a outline ahead of time to give to the participants and kind of saying, this is what's expected of you. Spend a few minutes sharing your story and then a few minutes doing this. So they can actually think about it before coming to the meeting.
And I think I would also like the opportunity to ask questions.
I agree.
So this is my story. This is what I'd like to see happen to make Salem better for me. Do you have questions for me?
Yeah, I like that format as well.
Tony
Then-
here. Go ahead, Haley.
Okay, I would also like to add, as someone with a panic disorder and other fun things like that, I know that sometimes like large groups, if there's going to be a large group of people, it's hard for me to bring up what I actually want to talk about. So I think the idea of like either passing out a survey we collect at the end or a survey prior, so people can feel like they're getting able to voice their opinion without the pressure of having to talk in front of a group of people, might be beneficial as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, sorry. So I think that we're hitting the very kind of first obstacle here in that we're trying to come up with a format that meets the needs of all of these disabilities. And this is how difficult it is. But I want to say, and maybe the format has to change based on the group we're dealing with. Here at Sequoia, you can't just hand out a paper. There are a lot of literacy issues in this community. I really think we need to come up with a format where we divide and conquer, and maybe it takes as many of us as can be at that location on that day and talk to whoever wants to tell us their story. But all of us that are there are going to have to hear the different stories of the different people. But maybe it's how we compile that information that is important as far as format. Meaning, maybe we go in with checklists. Did they raise, this issue, and to decide what those kind of categories are going to be. Like, we shouldn't assume what the categories are going to be. Like Marilyn said, transportation ended up being number one, number one, number one. That's going to happen to us too with the people that we meet. And we might find that there are, maybe there are issues that are common across all of these different locations, but we might find where there are issues that are more prevalent in the different communities that we talk to. But here at Sequoia Crossings, having an open room thing, I don't think you're going to get people to stand up and talk in front of everybody else. They don't have that kind of self-confidence.
I think that part of addressing people's needs is we can have the option, you can submit something on paper. If somebody wants to hand us a flash drive with audio on it, that would work as well. That would might help address literacy issues. If somebody wants to get up and speak, they can. If somebody doesn't feel they have public speaking skills or they're too anxious to do that, they don't have to. They could pull one of us aside and talk to us. However, we would request that the format be to respect everybody's time. When people are telling us things, they need to tell us their story, what they think could make things better, and answer questions.
Kind of being very direct within the invite,
Yes.
where we are inviting you to this. We know we are giving you a limited amount of time. Here's a format that might be able to help you express your needs quickly.
And if somebody doesn't have access to the technology for a flash drive, they could give us a micro cassette.
So I think I'm hearing a couple things. So I think I am generally in agreement with needing, well, certainly in agreement with needing kind of multimodal engagement, multiple modes of engagement. And I think to Tony's point, some of that depends on the demographic and the community that we're engaging with in any given day, and some of it should just be available kind of every single time. Right? So I think it's reasonable for us to want to have an open-ended written format for those who are able and willing, and maybe a survey for those who are willing and able, and then having community conversations for some folks that actually works really well, and having personal conversations because for some folks that works best. And so I think being able to do all of that requires maybe more time than the 90 minutes that we thought we needed for each of these sessions, number one. And number two, I think I like Dan's suggestion of having this information go out beforehand. I also recognize that folks are going to show up and not know what's going on and not be comfortable with things they've provided beforehand. So I think allowing for 20 minutes, 30 minutes of kind of introduction, transition, and getting folks acquainted with different tools available to them and at their disposal to engage with our project and our efforts would be really necessary as well, on top of having those available to folks before they come to these sessions. And so, and there may be situations like with Center for G Plus where that may not be possible, giving folks all the materials in advance. And so just having that original contact and outreach at the top of the hour feels very important as well. My big question would be to Gretchen, which is whether this is all possible in terms of capacity, having a survey, having a written, I guess the survey is the big question, but that would be the big lift. The survey, I think, to my mind, would have to be pretty short, maybe no more than a page long, and really get to the heart of what we want to know. So Gretchen, I think what's on offer to you from me is to help you draft that survey and get it out to folks on this task force to approve or provide feedback to here in the next week or two. Is that something that you think could be possible?
This is Robert here. I'm gonna jump in. I like the idea of a survey. I think having two modes of the survey. I'd be willing to, if there was help and input on some of the survey questions, tackle the formatting of it, because I think a digital format could be very helpful. It allows us to also cast a wider net because people can put it on their social media channels. We can have a set open window, and then it allows us to cast beyond just these listening sessions. We can get input from other members of the community, and then having it in a digital format just allows for a lot of easier back-end analytics when converting it to Excel. I do have a couple modes available to do that. The other thing I wanted to offer as well, with the Sequoia Crossings event, and as well with a survey, is I can push this out to the entire team at the Arches Project, and then also ask for case managers to help engage with their clients, during kind of like their weekly one-on-one sessions. So my goal with the survey here, if that's the direction we're moving with the survey and everything, is to also just reach out to those case managers ahead of time, and be like, hey, can you work with your clients ahead of this event to fill out the survey, or do you mind just documenting these interactions and bringing that stuff to the meeting? So I'll yield to Haley's got their hand up, and then I'll Gretchen to offer anything.
I like the idea of a digital, sorry, I'm thinking in the perspective of my friends who are visually impaired. I know a digital will help with they'll be able to have devices read to them and everything like that, or be able to see it better. And then I was thinking with that, if we do have a digital format, I could see if I can get it out to like the Oregon school. I don't know if we have a school for the blind and or anything like that. Get it out to those groups, or maybe some of the other visual impaired groups that help assist with teaching cane work and stuff like that.
I'm thinking maybe we should choose one session at least, to say this is, and I don't know if we can, to have an ASL interpreter at, and make it clear that this is the one session that we'll have an ASL interpreter at, if we can.
I think we can do that at a minimum, and then if we got requests for ASL at the others, we could fill upon request.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, and yeah, Joaquin, I am grateful to Robert for being open to building a digital survey. So to your question, I might connect with Robert about the timeline. I think you asked, could it come out in the next couple weeks? I'm hearing the format is fairly straightforward. It's, tell us what you want us to know about you. Tell us your, kind of tell us your story, give us your ideas for how to improve Salem, and then maybe an optional, tell us your contact information in case we have questions. So I might check there and see if that's what we have in mind, and then ask Robert if he thinks he could design that in the time frame.
This is Robert here. All of that's doable. I think having some of that open-ended stuff for people that would like to type and share their stories would be great. I also think we should try to incorporate some, just simple, like yes or no, or click some of these boxes for people that aren't going to be very, narrative heavy in their responses. So then it allows us to collect some information to analyze. But all of the stuff is easily doable in the survey format. You just tell me the types of questions and the formatting you want, and I'll make it happen. If you want it, I got it.
And I might jump in before Tony that we do have a meeting of the task force before the first engagement. So that's really helpful. We could maybe get a draft out to everybody, but then finalize it at the August 4th meeting. Although that's also a pretty full agenda. We've got 2 speakers planned for that night as well. Yeah.
Go ahead, Tony.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I wanted to clarify maybe more for myself. In the past, when we have done when in my experience working with an online survey, it was SurveyMonkey at the time. What we did was we made sure that the paper matched the online survey, and then when we got the paper surveys, one of us just would then answer it in the survey app, so that all of our data was in there for the analytics. So I think that would be a good way for us, like if we could keep whatever we're doing, face to face or on paper in a similar format, or so that we could enter that data into the app, like Robert said, then the analytics on the back end are going to be easier for us to manage.
Yeah, that's right. Everything will be combined into one accessibly and easily analyzed data set. And if it comes down to it, Tony, I will be the one chugging and plugging myself if need be.
I can celebrate at this moment that we have an intern starting for this task force in late August from Willamette University that we can task with help as well.
Manually inputting stuff into a survey sounds like initial intern task, and kind of think really just starts everything off on the right foot. I do have, though, just one question, given that we are running short on time, is how are we marketing these events? Like, how are we gonna get the word out that, we're hosting community engagement events at Sequoia Crossing, Salem Public Library, and Center 50 Plus?
This is Gretchen. I'd like to check an assumption. My assumption is that the Center 50 and the library one would be more publicly marketed. And so, for example, we can share that at the library, at Center 50, at the city's communication tools, including we have a listserv that has a number of organizations that interact with or serve people with disabilities that we get the word out to, like Commission on the Blind, Commission on the Deaf, for example. But Sequoia, Shangri-La, and neurodiverse inclusive solutions would be really a conversation with those groups of people. And we would not publicly just say, everyone come to those. To Dan's point about we don't want to be overwhelmed with
Yeah, I would
people.
agree.
No, this is Robert here. That sounds good, Gretchen. I can work with the team at Sequoia unless Tony wanted to about, I don't know, whipping something up in Microsoft Paint 98 about the event. So Tony, if it's all right with you, I could ask Gretchen to share your contact information and we could collaborate on marketing the Sequoia event together.
That would be fine. I mean, I always figured that I would be the one kind of letting all of my neighbors know ahead of time, frequently, reminding them once I knew when the date would be.
All right. Well, if you want to just start knocking on doors and letting people know that Monday, August 11th at 3 p.m., they're going to hang out with some cool kids in the community room at Sequoia Crossing, that'd be fantastic.
I will do that. I do have a request. There are residents who are not allowed to go into the community room for various reasons, and I would like them not to be prohibited from this event. So could you work with the management here to make sure that everybody has access?
Absolutely. I will discuss that. And if that doesn't work, August is generally pretty sunny, so we could also just switch to the yard as well.
That
For those that aren't familiar, all the units kind of face like this very big open courtyard. And so there's also room for just being able to do it outside as well. So.
You're on mute, Joaquin.
Of course I am. Thank you. I don't normally facilitate from the phone, so I apologize. But we're moving, so. Well, I appreciate you all for your generative engagement and planning these conversations. I think it really will make them impactful and productive. So thank you for all for that, and Gretchen, Robert, and Tony and Dan actually too for all your work on that. All right, I think we're gonna have to come to a close here, but I will, before opening it to member remarks, just remind you all that you should have received in the email in advance of this meeting information from the HRC's community belonging survey results. Apropos of that survey is a couple of areas around disability experiences that I thought were particularly relevant, and hope that you all have a chance to, if you haven't already, review and consider in an informal way, but eventually in a formal way when we go to make recommendations. And we may make this survey maybe a topic of conversation at a later meeting, particularly around questions 5 and 9 in the survey, which related to people's witnessing discrimination, and then also people's personally having experienced it. And I think the numbers on disability were pretty notable. People really saw it happening at higher rates and experienced them at rates that were unacceptable as well. So please take note of that if you haven't, and then come prepared to talk about that at future conversations. And with that, I'll leave it open for a few seconds, minutes maybe, for member remarks and announcements if there are any. And hearing none, I appreciate another successful meeting and look forward to working with a few of you around the survey and kind of community engagement questions as we come into August, and look forward to seeing you in the first week of August. So thank you all, and take care.